Okay, so I've got the data sheet for this X17 GNSS receiver, and some of the specs are pretty impressive. I've been hearing about this one. Let's dig in. What's the main thing that jumps out at you, honestly? It's all about how it claims to handle a hostile RF environment. I mean, that's where most receivers just fall apart.
Exactly. That's the fundamental challenge, isn't it? For any critical application, think autonomous tractors, drones, comms infrastructure, you have to have absolute positional integrity. So the big question is, what happens when the very signals you depend on are being attacked?
Well, that's where you really have to appreciate just how fragile these GNSS signals are. I mean, they've traveled over 20,000 kilometers. By the time they get to us, they're incredibly faint. It's like trying to hear a whisper in a library. Except the modern world is way more like a rock concert than a library.
Yeah, this really breaks it down. On one side, you've got jamming, which is just brute force noise screaming over the real signal. And on the other, you've got spoofing, which is so much more insidious. That's not just noise. It's someone whispering false directions in your ear, trying to make you think you're somewhere you're not. A standard receiver, it just doesn't stand a chance against that.
Okay, so this is where the X17 is supposed to shine. The datasheet says it's designed specifically for these hostile environments. Right, but how does it actually do it? What's under the hood?
This right here is what I was talking about. See, it's not just one solution. It's a full suite of technologies, a multi-layered defense. They're not just relying on a single trick. They're tackling interference, integrity, authentication, and more all at the same time.
Exactly, a layered defense. So let's break it down, starting with the most common threat, brute force jamming. How does this thing actually fight through all that noise?
So the core of it seems to be this AIM Plus technology. The datasheet calls it Advanced Monitoring and Mitigation. Now, that tells me it's not just a simple static filter. It has to be actively analyzing the spectrum, identifying threats, and then dynamically creating filters on the fly. It's really the brains of the whole anti-jamming operation.
And of course, that software needs the right hardware to work. Section 1.5 in the datasheet mentions a 4-element antenna array, and that's what allows for digital beamforming. It can create these nulls in its reception pattern. Basically, it can tell itself to ignore noise from a specific direction while still listening for the actual satellite signals.
And here's the proof, right? It's one thing to say you can block jamming, but can you still deliver precision? This number, the horizontal RTK accuracy from their performance table, is staggering. We're talking sub-centimeter accuracy in these conditions. That means you aren't just surviving interference, you're completely dominating it. Okay, so it handles the noise. That's impressive. But what about the harder problem, deception? How does it defend against a spoofing attack, where the signal looks totally authentic but is actually a lie?
That's where this quote from the overview is key. When they say robust, they're not just talking about signal availability, they're talking about signal trustworthiness. A standard receiver under a spoofing attack will still give you a position. It'll just be the wrong one, which frankly is even more dangerous.
And this is how they ensure that trust. AIM Plus is an internal consistency check, which is great. But the real game changer here is the OSNMA support. That's Galileo's Open Service Navigation Message Authentication. It's basically a cryptographic signature on the signal itself. So the receiver can mathematically verify that the signal is genuinely from a Galileo satellite and not some spoofer on the ground.
So the internal processing is clearly top tier. You've got advanced algorithms for jamming, cryptographic verification for spoofing, but for the kind of applications this is built for, aerospace, military, the software is only half the story.
Exactly. You can have the smartest algorithms in the world, but if the housing cracks or the connector fails, it's all useless. And look at this, a 7-pin aviation plug. That's not a consumer-grade connector. That, plus the rugged housing, shows a design philosophy where the physical resilience has to match the electronic resilience.
And this table really just summarizes the whole approach perfectly. The strength comes from this tight integration. The AIM Plus software needs the 4-element antenna, the OSNMA provides the trustworthy data, and the whole thing is wrapped in a package that can actually survive out there in the field. It's a complete system.
Which brings us to the real takeaway. Looking at this kind of technology, you really have to ask the question on this slide. For any industry that relies on precise positioning for safety, autonomy, aerospace, has this level of resilience crossed the line from being a high-end feature to a mandatory requirement? I think it already has. It's something everyone in the field really needs to be thinking about.